Hi, welcome to Hemingway Honeys, and today we're going to be diving into coming out. Yay! So the first time I told you I was attracted to men, I was 20 years old. We sat on my bed, and I just was like, I have an attraction to men. From my perspective, my mom's reaction was very monotone. There was no extreme reaction. I saw that she just needed to process it, she needed to think about it. But also I felt that, she knows me so well, so it wasn't a shock to her. How was that initially for you? I know, was it from my time I was a teenager? I was going through this and I was figuring out my sexuality.
Sure. I think 7 years old,
Mm-hmm.
what attracted Ariane was always towards pink. And what attracted Ariane was always towards the Barbie dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point I was confused, thinking, okay, well, he's a little boy. He's probably thinking, wow, these are beautiful. Thinking he's young, I'm not going to really look into this too much and worry about this. And really shocked that your dad was okay to even purchase Barbie dolls for you a lot of times.
Was he though? He was.
A lot of times I wasn't even there when you
That's right.
guys came home.
That's right. So when my dad used to take me out shopping, we'd always go to Toys R Us, or we'd go get a bunch of toys, and he would just buy me massive amounts of just because gifts. During the times where my dad would take me to the store, of course my eyes went directly to the Barbie dolls. Especially those fairies that you would spin, you pull them up and they'd fly into the air, the gayest thing ever created. If you are a child born in the 90s and you didn't have that toy, I feel sorry for you. When we would go to the store, my dad would look left, look right. He'd be like, okay, all right, go. So he'd make me race to grab whatever I needed. So I had to know what I wanted. Did I always like something? Maybe it was Malibu Barbie, but I didn't want Malibu Barbie. Maybe I wanted something else. But I think he was so ashamed of the fact that I was getting Barbie dolls and I liked pink and it wasn't masculine to do those things. My dad dealt with it by buying me stuff. I think my mom was more on the fence of I'll wait for him to say something. And I think when I hit a certain age, I was ready to say something.
And also most of your friends were all girls. So at one point I was worried.
Sure.
That, Ariane, you do need to have some, few guy friends.
They were all pansexual, so they really, and so I from a young age I was privileged and fortunate enough to grow up in an area where there was a lot of diversity in regards to ethnicity, sexuality, where I didn't experience as much homophobia or bullying. Obviously a lot of my peers did, so witnessing that was really difficult. And at the time my mom wasn't exactly thrilled that I had so many girlfriends, and then when she found out they were lesbian initially, it was shocking. For me, it wasn't a big deal. It never was a big deal. But for my mom, being from a different generation, you were still getting acclimated to things. I think with time, it became easier for you to accept it because our relationship was so strong and it didn't depend on other people's opinions.
No,
or other
not
people's
only that,
stuff,
I think as a parent, I speak for myself, if you love your kids, it really doesn't matter how they want to choose their lifestyle. If it's not, he's not bothering anyone, he's not hurting anyone, he's choosing his sexuality.
Well, not choosing, but you're born this way, so you don't choose the life.
It's not a choice.
It's not a choice.
You're correct.
Yeah.
So I still, after all these years,
I'm still correct.
Can use the right words. He just prefers men.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, is it hard for me as a mother? Yes. And I have to be honest with that, because then I have to think about, I may never be a grandmother. I may never experience, I have a son, never experience having a daughter-in-law to be able to spoil my grandkids. But I have to think realistic. If my son is happy, that is his path, that I need to support that, because that should be the unconditional love that I need to give my son.
Right.
And with that, I have to grieve about it, and sometimes, it takes me to a different direction. Yes, I'm never gonna have that little Ariane. I was hoping for, have grandkids, but that doesn't mean anything because he can meet someone and adopt a child.
I urge all parents that come into a point where their child is saying I don't feel like I'm in the right body, or I don't feel like I'm heterosexual. It's important to listen, and it's important to talk to them and not immediately assume that they need to go get help for it.
Yes.
Just like there's racism,
Yes.
there's homophobia. It's important to not be part of that hate. So you accepting your child and being an ally automatically puts you in the group of being progressive, being forward thinking, and actually caring about your child. I know some people say, well, I can care about my child but not accept their way of life, but them being gay is not just a lifestyle. At the end of the day, like we talked about this in the previous video, again, you have a path or you have an idea of what you want to do, and then you get kicked off.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to cope with that, and that will always be the case.
And everybody's journey is different. So
exactly.
I got to have only one son, and I had to go through some challenges that my marriages weren't good. But from all the experience of my life, really, as most of you know, I always put it out there that Aryan was the best gift given to me. So why would I want to, mess that up just because he tells me he's gay? I'm a Christian. I also come from a background from Iran. My family, probably a lot of them are very old-fashioned, wouldn't think this is the right thing to discuss. But I believe that this is the world we live in, and we need to be honest with each other. So if we want to help our kids from hurting themselves, there's a lot of suicide. The rate is really high among young adults because they don't have anyone to listen
even
to
adolescents,
them.
even young people who are LGBT living in like middle America who don't have anyone to relate to, and that's why we need public figures and people that they can look up
accepting.
to.
And you need to be accepting, just like we as Christians are always told, God loves all. I'm proud that Aryan was able to just trust me enough to share his story and be honest with me and just come out. And I hope and pray that we can get other people that are watching this, that they would do the same thing with their parents.
You don't want to have any regrets that you didn't tell someone something. And on the other side of it, it's like, well, my parents older, they're not really going to understand, so why tell them? And I get that too, I get that, but sometimes it's better to get it out of your system and know that the other person knows and you weren't lying or keeping something from them, especially if you have a close relationship. I think how they respond to your coming out should not define your truth. And I hope that doesn't make you reconsider things. It's like seeking approval from your parent. It's so unhealthy to do that, especially when the parent doesn't even understand your experience. If your parent isn't also gay, how can they possibly know what you're going through? How can they possibly know whether it's natural? And not only you know that it's natural, and sometimes it requires educating your parents. I know a lot of friends that have to drill it into their parents' head, listen, this isn't going to change anytime soon. You can't snap a finger. You can't take me to conversion therapy. I am who I am at the end of the day. And nothing you say, nothing that other person says is going to change that. So you're better off just, as a parent, accepting it and moving on. Why are you harboring onto your imagination of what life should be and what their life should be?
And also, you'd be amazed how much you can learn from your kids as parents, because we think we have all the answers, we have all the experience. But if you actually sit down and talk to them, spend time with them, you'd be amazed of how much new information. I've learned a lot also from Aryan with some of the ways that they associate with their friends, or even got to learn to be friends with his friends. Because as parents, it's important we show interest in their lives, that they matter.
Not everyone loves that. Some people think it's overbearing, but I don't mind it as much because we've developed a friendship.
Yes.
And the only reason why it works, again, time and time again, I'll say this, is because you're open and you are receptive, and you don't think that you're always right about things that you don't really know or understand.
Sure.
And I think that's usually where people go wrong, is when they automatically say, no, I don't want to know about that. I already know, I'm an expert on it. I don't want to get involved because it's too uncomfortable. I don't understand it. And that's a lot of people are, a lot of people are like that. So I think you being the polar opposite made things so much easier. There was a grieving process, but it wasn't as important as our relationship. Right, exactly. And it wasn't as important as moving forward with, our relationship and our life together. Whether we're together or whether I'm in DC separate doing my own thing, we're always staying connected. And
all the time.
Yeah, I think that's, again, that comes from my honesty, my transparency, and then also hers.
And also support factor. So
yeah.
talking to your kids, you'd be surprised of how much you can actually learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
With the mistakes that I've made in my marriages, if I ask Ariane, here's the decision that I'm gonna make, so what are your thoughts on that? And he had always had the same answer. He says, Mom, what makes you happy? Whatever makes you happy, I'm okay with. So think through, what is it that you want? Now, as parents, can we really say what Ariane told me?
Yeah.
Can we really say that we as parents say those things to our kids when they come to us asking those questions? To support and encourage and be there for each other, because you do go through a lot of ups and downs and tough times, and
sure.
That's important.
Yeah, and not to steal your thunder, I'll close off with really talking about how my mom and I used to go to a church up in Frederick that, she enjoyed going to. And there was one time where my mom said, oh, they're going to do a sermon. I think you should really sit in on it. And of course, the sermon talked about how homosexuality was a sin. And I was like, why did she bring me to this? Like, this is not helpful. This is so outdated and basic that I think my mom quickly figured out that this wasn't the church for her.
No.
Not just because of the sermon, but also because she felt very judged after her divorce.
Yeah.
They didn't treat her with equality. And because she felt that sense of discrimination, she felt that sense of like being on the outside, and she understood kind of like my pain and what I was going through. So she could relate to that, and that's why it was an easier process to accept me for how I was, and to get away from that church and move to like Journey's Crossing, which is so much more, yes, which I know this is like promoting JC, but I think they're amazing. But they're so much more inclusive and understanding and loving, and they don't push religion on you. And I think that's important for our society, because pushing really anything onto another person is a great way for them to run the other direction.
Yes.
So that experience that we had of understanding what we both went through the same thing, but in different ways,
yes.
for different reasons. So
and
that
it led us into the right direction.
It led us in the right direction of being closer. So you may have a parent that's never been divorced, that has never gone through the same hurdles that my mom, let's say, has. And if the kid is going through not being accepted, but the parent never had to worry about that, there's always going to be a little bit of a disconnect. So the child, it's really, unfortunately, it has been left to the child to do all the work. So if you are in that situation and as a parent, you haven't gone through the same hurdles, it's your job to be understanding. It's your job to, be there to listen to your kid and learn to understand them, and not be closed-minded to how your parents did things, because we're no longer living in that world anymore. Also, that all of a sudden homophobia is a thing. No, it's been a thing. Now that we have cell phones, it's broadcasted, and now you're seeing the truth surface more and more. And I'm hoping it's opening people's eyes to learn that we need to be understanding, accepting, and loving towards people. If I had to deal with a parent who didn't understand, I think I also need to learn patience and understand that it takes time for that person to get to know you and your life a little bit better. And the person may not always be open, because that requires rewiring sometimes. You can't just talk to them, have a conversation, they go to bed, then wake up changed. It's a process. So patience from the child, openness from the parent, and that will lead to bigger, better things for the relationship.
Because that's what everybody wants.
Exactly.
It creates a happier home. And as your kids get older, I can't even describe, because, Ariane's 29, and, I love to meet his friends. I want to know more about his friends. I'm interested.
Well, we have 100 and some mutual friends, so I think you've gotten to know them very well.
Yeah. So
and
just
they love her.
Kids,
yeah.
Love your kids.
Yeah, she's like, okay, we're done with this conversation. Yeah, thank you guys for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
We love you. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to leave any comments, any questions. We're happy to answer. And we may go and do like a live Instagram or Facebook video. That would be a lot of fun.
Yep.
If you guys like that idea, let us know in the comments and give us a thumbs up for a like. All right?
Thank you.
Take care. We love you.
Bye.
Bye.